Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to Good Morning Australia. No, this week in Bitcoin. Today is September the 21st, 2018. Strong hand, long-term thinking, unconfiscatable. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. And yeah, we got people in the Northern Hemisphere today. We got Ed Iskra's up there, and so is Rocky Palumbo. And down here in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm in Chile and Santiago. And Stephan Livera is in Sydney, Australia. And you've seen all these guys on this show before. So we're coming from all over the world tonight or this afternoon or this morning in Australia. So we're all over the place. All right. So it has been quite a week in Bitcoin. Something I love to focus on the positive aspects of Bitcoin. And there's been one story that's, people have been fudding a little bit about, but there's some positive things to derive from it. And that there was a bug in the code. There was a vulnerability found. Now, nobody exploited it. There was no problems came about. They fixed it. But Ed, tell us about this vulnerability, this bug. Oh, you're muted.
So this bug came as a surprise to most people in this space. But obviously there were people who reported under fair disclosure, and the Bitcoin core developers very quickly created a patch to address the vulnerability. They immediately rolled it out to their miners, mining pools, and the major players in the Bitcoin space. And as soon as the code for the fix became public, it was also able to be implemented by all the many coins that were also affected. Because the key here is this was a mistake that was introduced into Bitcoin Core's wallet, which a lot of coin projects have forked off. Bitcoin is the original. So it affected our project, Bitcoin Gold, as well as many others. But we all, as a rule, did the same thing. We took the changes, we merged them into our code, and quickly contacted the key players in our environments, especially the pools. So this bug specifically was something that could be used by a malicious miner to make improperly formed transactions to try to double spend something in the same transaction of the block in which it was created. So that's a complex way of saying you need a very strange scenario that has to be malicious and intentional, that never happens by accident. So this isn't, as you said, this isn't something that caused any errors or crashes or inflation in the past. It's a vulnerability that was identified. It was very quickly addressed once it was discovered and communicated to the people involved. And other coin projects have quickly adapted as well. And now we're all sort of in the same mode. Bitcoin, Bitcoin Gold, and every other affected coin is now in the mode of telling people, update your full nodes. The big players have already done this from source code, but now we've all deployed the executable. So, if you have a full node at home, Bitcoin Gold core wallet, Bitcoin core wallet, or the equivalent from any of the other coin chains, you need to update that to the latest version so that your node is not vulnerable to crashing in the event that someone does try to use this vulnerability in the wild.
All right. Again, it's not freaking me out too much. But Stephan, what's your thoughts on all this? What good can be derived from this? What lessons can be learned?
Well, the lesson is vigilance, right? It means there needs to be a lot of code review, testing, all that in terms of good practices around Bitcoin. Now, it is a known thing that the Bitcoin core developers are some of the top developers, right? They are some of the most excellent developers you can find. However, mistakes can still happen, right? And I think the lesson to learn here is there's always a lot more work to be done. We can have more testing, more code review, and the way to something that I've been hearing from other people is saying, oh, look, Bitcoin core devs, they put in this mistake, but honestly, you have to think about it in terms of what's your best alternative, right? the best cryptocurrency development team is the Bitcoin Core team at the moment. I think it's, you know, I mean, and it's not even one monolithic team, right? To really think about it that way, it's really more like there are many different contributors from different companies. You know, you got Blockstream, you got Chain Code Labs, you got MIT Digital Currency Initiative, you got independent developers. It's a whole mix. It's a whole range of things. And I think the other silver linings and aspects that we can take from this are that, well, look, so long as you ran a full node, your full node would have detected any sort of inflation, right? And many of these mining pools, they would also run these kinds of detection software to try and detect a chain split, because from their point of view, they don't want to be mining on the wrong chain either. So it's a building ecosystem, and it's getting stronger as we go. That's how I would summarize my thoughts, Adam.
Yes, it's good. Take patience, people. You gotta be, you can't rush changes. This is, you know, even these guys are some of the most patient dudes in the world. I met, you know, a few months ago or a year ago, people wanted to rush all these changes in the Bitcoin. This is why you don't rush changes, because you could just only imagine how messy the situation could be. By the way, the full disclosure, the official CVE-28171444 full disclosure is linked to below. An Aaron von Weirdem article about this is linked to below if you need even more information about it. A Matt Odell tweet I'll read out in a second is also linked to below. And of course, all these guys are linked to below also. Rocky, what's your deal on this situation?
Well, I just wanted to add that, you know, well, let me share a screen here. You know, the nodes really ran with this and updated really fast. I've been running a node, a full validating node, for over a year and a half now, and I had mine updated within 24 hours. Here's a tweet from the 4 Satoshis, which I recommend everybody follow on Twitter, where they updated theirs within 24 hours. And at that time, already 1,180 nodes had already updated. And then they tweeted again within 48 hours, it was 1,625 updated. And, you know, earlier today, it was over 2,000. And so, well, actually, before 48 hours, it went from, you know, being a brand new update to number 3rd. Most used version. And then that was yesterday. Then this morning, it went to the number 1 version used. So that's a testament to, you know, how great the node operators are in efficiently getting this update out there and running. I would also just like to comment on how the other, you know, some people from other chains out there are kind of pointing their fingers and saying, oh, I thought core developers were so great. You know, I thought they're supposed to be the best in the space, but really they are, because there's lots of chains that have this same problem because they forked from Bitcoin, and the developers in those chains didn't find this issue. It was the Bitcoin Core developers found it. And when I say Bitcoin Core developers, I'm talking that's what they're called, the Bitcoin Core developers. I'm not calling Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. And only the developers are called the Bitcoin Core.
Yes.
That's sorry, small. Go on.
Go ahead.
A very important point to put that out there.
Yeah.
Some people do get confused about what's Bitcoin Core. We're talking about the developers. Yeah, someone's about to say something.
Yeah, just one quick thing. I think, in fairness, it looks like it was an anonymous developer who disclosed it to the Bitcoin Core team, and that's what Matt Corallo mentioned in his full disclosure post. So anyone interested, I recommend you have a read, obviously, of the Aaron van Weirdem article, great article as always, and also have a read of Matt Corallo's blog post on the Bitcoin Core, where he spells out exactly the timeline of what happened. So yeah, that's a great read for anyone in the audience as well.
Those are both linked to below already. I'm going to also add the 4 Satoshis Twitter. Man, I'm quick on my feet here. Pound that like button. Adam Meister's in motion. Yeah, I just interrupted someone again. Sorry.
Sure, I just wanted to add something because we were talking about what other coins were affected. And yeah, responsible disclosure is a huge thing. It's weird and a lot of people don't get into it, but the people who look for bugs and report problems, look for responsible disclosure on a site or organization's pages to find out how to contact them if you found something that you think is a vulnerability. But just extend the idea of what other coins are affected. BitGo had a post 20 hours ago saying, dear customers, We've patched this vulnerability for all systems, including Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin Gold. So, I mean, it affects a lot of things, even things like Litecoin that were forked off of Bitcoin long ago can have merged the changes that put this problem in place in Bitcoin, because it was intended originally to improve performance. They were removing what appeared to be redundant or unnecessary checks, and they introduced a really subtle flaw in a situation that doesn't normally happen, but could potentially be exploited. And this is reinforcement of the fact that Bitcoin is the safest platform to work off of, because you have so many developers. When an anonymous person found this, they didn't go exploiting it. They reported it to the devs, and the devs almost immediately put out the patch. Not immediately sprang into action. They sprang into action, verified the problem, worked out the patches. They even found additional vulnerabilities due to this flaw that hadn't been discovered yet, so nobody could have tried to exploit it. But they fixed it all quickly. And this emphasizes the most important thing about Bitcoin: the fact that it's immutable, the fact that it's reliable, the fact that it is the most looked at piece of code out there. And anyone who extends Bitcoin or builds onto it with fancy new technology and puts that in the blockchain itself, puts it in the main chain, they're playing with fire. You know, this is a major reason why it's not a good idea to keep extending the main chain with new capabilities and putting more crap in there. It needs to stay clean. It needs to stay the safest, most immutable base layer. And that's why there's so much talk about things like Lightning Network, layer 2 solutions, which don't need to screw with the main chain in order to add tremendous new capabilities. It just reinforces that to me.
Yeah, very, very good point. You don't need to mess with that main base layer. Go to the second layer if you want to mess around, play around there. Very, very good point. I want to read this Matt Odell tweet because he kind of sums up what everybody's been saying here. One, and this is linked to below, this is why a slow and conservative process is important. Real money at stake. Bugs need to be minimized as much as possible. 2, great response handling by the devs involved. And 3, wasn't exploited. Run your own node to verify. So, I mean, this is all stuff that we've covered, but that's a great summary. I want to put something out. One other final thing that I haven't heard mentioned about this. Now, this exploit, bug, whatever you want to call it, it's been sitting around for 1.5 years, yet no one has taken advantage of it. No one. And there are all these people out there that like to FUD on Bitcoin. It says that the governments, there are powerful governments in the world that hate Bitcoin, and they'll do anything to destroy it. It is so clear that if these magical governments exist, they're not paying too close attention because they've had 1.5 years to discover this and come up with a plan that could have really messed with Bitcoin. They've got all the money in the world. So I come from the belief system where right now governments, they're not trying to destroy Bitcoin. Maybe some don't like it that much, but they don't consider it much of a threat at all to whatever they're doing, to their status quo, where where they've got smart people looking for ways to take advantage of Bitcoin and really mess it up. Because again, if they had geniuses out there, geniuses in the government, if there were geniuses out there in the Chinese government, in the Russian government, in the American government, whatever government that wanted to destroy it, well, they've had 1.5 years to be obsessed with Bitcoin and find something. And I don't think such people exist, and I think this is a sign that that's probably a conspiracy theory, that the governments are so obsessed with it, they're just looking to destroy it at all times that they're going through. So that's I don't know if anyone has anything to add on to that, but that was something I hadn't heard. Oh yes, Rocky.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Stephan for correcting me on that. I thought it was a core developer that found it. Apparently it wasn't. This is all still very new. I haven't read everything on it yet. And a lot of misinformation is out there, so you got to be careful what you do read. But I still have all my faith in the world and in the Bitcoin developers, and these other people that support these other coins. They do not want to have anybody, the core developers or people who are looking for bugs for Bitcoin, have any ill will towards them, or they just might exploit the problem instead of expose it properly to the the developers. And they need to remember that it was Bitcoin core developer who last month saved Bcash. They found that vulnerability and told them, so hey, I wouldn't rag on the Bitcoin developers too much if I were you.
Yeah, yes, very, very, very good point. All right, any final thoughts on this subject before we move on? Okay, cool. Well, we got Rocky here. Rocky, Lightning Network is growing bigger and faster than anyone thought it would. You've got some thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, the Lightning Network is just really taking off. It's growing so big, so fast. I mean, nobody even dreamed it would get this big, this fast. Here is a tweet where there's a guy, I think this is Switzerland, where there's a coffee shop there that has this menu outside where you just scan the QR code using Lightning, a Lightning wallet with Bitcoin, and you just pay for it outside. It gives you a little secret code. You go in and give them the code, and they give you your product that you just ordered at the window outside. So when I first saw this, I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, this is going to be revolutionary. I'm seeing the day when, you go to fast food or any restaurant and you could scan QR codes right from the menu and pay for it. And, and then your food's just delivered. And just, oh God, the possibilities are endless. Also, here is a video from a guy who works for Bitfury, who just modified this coffee machine to dispense the coffee with a Lightning transaction. And you're going to see him here just in a moment. He's going to select the kind of coffee he wants. It's going to give him a QR code. It's a lot just like a Bitcoin transaction. It's nothing different. You just need the Bitcoin Lightning wallet, and you could send it right from a cell phone. You don't need anything special. Right now, to receive a payment, you have to be connected to your own full node, but that's receiving. You can always receive just a regular Bitcoin if you need to receive. And so you see there how quick that was, and it just starts pouring the coffee for him. So this is it. It's just awesome. I just can't wait.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Well, I'm glad this is a positive. This is something, it's just tip of the iceberg type of stuff. We can't predict the future. Now, Stephan, you've had some Lightning, people talking about Lightning on your show lately, talking about some of the economic aspects of it. This is a broad question. You could talk about that, or you could talk about some of your favorite Lightning things that are going on. I think the guy on your show said that he didn't think people would be able to make that much off of Lightning.
Yep. Please. Sure, I can explain that. So essentially what that was there was recently this discussion from Nick Bhatia, and he was talking about this concept of Lightning Network Reference Rate. This concept by staking Bitcoins into a Lightning payment channel that you could earn interest on that Bitcoin. Now, my more recent interview, so that I discussed that in episode 7 with Nick Bhatia, and then the most recent episode was episode 23 with Rusty Russell. Now, he's a very well-known and renowned developer of Blockstream, and he is one of the kind of main writers or contributors to the Lightning specification, and he also obviously codes on C Lightning. And so his discussion there was saying that, no, I don't really think interest rates are really going to be possible in that way. But from the discussion, it was more like a compensation for risk, essentially. So we're getting a little bit technical in terms of how Lightning works, but essentially Lightning uses multi-hops, and there are what you might call cascading or interlocking hash time lock contracts. And that concept there was just basically that, it won't necessarily be a big interest rate, and because the fee might be really, really low, it just might be a bit of a compensation for risk. But with Lightning in general, I'm very excited, right? Because there's a lot of things coming. There's a lot of development coming. Just as Rocky was pointing out, you've got L&D who came out with a new software recently, and they are coming out with a light client version, which is called Neutrino. Currently, that's only in the test net, but eventually, once some more work is done, that will come out on the full network. And then people will be able to use a light client Lightning wallet off their phone, say. Or the other option is things like a Lightning wallet that is connected, say, from your phone back to your node back at home. So there's options there as well. And then, there's coming potential new features coming with Lightning as well. So in that discussion with Rusty Russell, he discussed how the 3 main Lightning implementations will be meeting here in Australia in Adelaide, though, and they'll be discussing a few new features, some of which will be things like atomic multipath payment. They'll be discussing things like better fee estimation. They'll be discussing things like splicing, which is, some of this stuff is a little technical, but it's like this idea of resizing your channels such that you don't have to close them. You can just resize amongst the channels that you already have open. So really excited to see some of this stuff. And there could not be a better time for this stuff to be coming now, because right now we're seeing more censorship of people like Alex Jones. Alex Jones got shut down off some of his social media. And not only that, he is now getting shut down on PayPal. Exactly. So, and you got other guys like Roosh V and all these other dudes who are getting shut down. Guess what's the perfect, thing for them to now start using? Well, Bitcoin and Lightning. So, there's a silver lining to every cloud, and the increasing censorship and control by governments can, in a sense, drive adoption of an alternative, which is Bitcoin and Lightning.
Yes, and I was going to bring up the Alex Jones thing. I'm glad I'll bring him up more on my Sunday show. But I mean, again, he has been a guy who has spread FUD about Bitcoin in the past, and now that PayPal's cut him off, which was so predictable. He's going to have to make a decision. I mean, it's a serious thing. He's going to have to really look into it instead of overreacting to it. So I mean, it's kind of funny that he's been put into this. It's unfortunate for him, but hey, if he just they're putting PayPal and these centralized financial organizations. They're putting these guys. They're backing them into a corner. And if the guys want to get out of the corner, then get on Bitcoin. And hey, Lightning. You're mentioning Lightning Network Solutions, which is awesome. And who knows what. And again, we don't have to agree with what these dudes say at all, but if one of these big names that's been rejected by the mainstream financial system jumps on the Bitcoin or Lightning or whatever, it will be tremendous. I want to point out one thing. Rusty, he's in Australia also, isn't he? He's in
he's an Australian. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is so check out obviously Stephan's shows. I linked to Stephan's Twitter below. His podcasts are amazing. He has a lot of the same guys that I have on. He mentioned Nick. Nick Botch has also been on the show. Now, I love having Nick on the show because he's talking all financial stuff with me. I'm more comfortable with the technical stuff. I mean, Rusty could blow my brains out with that stuff. No doubt about it. So I do wonder when he's obviously a genius type of dude, but so he got into the financial side of things with you also, which is interesting. That's not. I mean, he's known for the technical side, and then obviously Nick is known for the financial type of analysis. But I think Nick's financial analysis of the Lightning Network has been just amazing, has been very original at least, and inspirational. Before we move on to Ed, Rocky, you wanted to add something about, you said you forgot to say something about Lightning?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, the transactions per second that Lightning's going to bring to Bitcoin, because I did hear Andreas Antonopoulos talking one day, and he said that a Lightning channel can handle up to 500 transactions per second. And if you look at this website right here, it is now saying that there are currently over 8,000 channels in the Lightning Network. So that 500 transactions per second sounds a bit steep to me, but it's hard to go against Andreas Antonopoulos. But let's just assume for the moment he misspoke or something. Let's take 1/5 of that, right? 100 transactions per second. Well, with 8,000 channels, that would be 800,000 transactions per second. So, you could start to talk about, worldwide mass adoption with that kind of throughput.
Oh, good. This is good additional information there. Thank you for that. Ed, what do you have to say about what's your favorite Lightning Network news, or any comments about what these guys have to say?
I just wanted to tag on to what he just said. I don't think that count is excessive because since Lightning Network transaction is strictly between the two nodes, it's a function of latency. So if you are close to the node, if your node is close to their node, it can be really fast. It can probably be faster than that estimate. He was probably including in his estimate some sort of, you know, typical latency between the two locations. It's mind-bogglingly the kind of transactions per second you can get with Lightning Network. And I just wanted to mention, I mean, Bitcoin Lightning Network is taking off like crazy. Litecoin has had Lightning Network for a while. It's not growing as quickly, but it is growing. We've got Lightning Network on our testnet now. Cross-chain transactions, cross-chain atomic swaps through Lightning Network are going to improve liquidity across the chains, within the chains. It totally overwhelms anything you could do on the main chain.
One quick point. When he said we, he's talking about Bgold, because he's Bgold Edward. He's Bgold Ed. We got to remind everyone of that. And he'll talk about Bgold. We're going to get an update, because I know some people want to definitely hear about that. But yeah, the cross-chain atomic swaps. Yeah, that is that when I had what's his face on my show, Litecoin Lee on my show, Charlie Lee was on my show. He was talking about that. So that blows my mind also.
And that's a huge enabler for decentralized exchanges too. I mean, good mechanisms for cross-chain atomic swap are huge for decentralized exchanges. And we were talking about censorship. You know, one of the big things in the news lately has been that a major player in the space, I don't know if you want to call out names, is now going to do KYC. They're going to have a membership and registration process, whereas before they used to allow anonymous chain-to-chain transactions.
Wait, Shapeshift? You're talking about Shapeshift?
I am. I didn't know who I should or shouldn't bring up.
No.
My tendency to just be completely open.
I think there's a lot of irony behind all that, but anyway.
A lot.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you were saying about that. I didn't interrupt you. Sorry. Do you have something else to say about the shapeshift situation? Sorry, Ed. I thought I cut you off there. Are you there, Ed?
I think you might be frozen.
Oh, yeah, that's why. Okay, well, Ed will...
is having a single place that a government or private entities can focus on to try to choke off natural trade.
You got cut off there. Did you guys hear him? Did everybody? No. Okay. Say the last minute of what you said again, because it got.
So what I'm saying is that cross-chain atomic swaps enable a kind of backend for decentralized exchanges, and decentralized exchanges, unlike centralized exchanges, mean that trade can happen, commerce can happen with no choke point that can be attacked by a commercial entity or by a government. If you can do it in a decentralized way, then you don't have the ability to attack a shapeshift by regulation, which is probably what's going on the back end, or have a public company bow to public pressure like we see happening in the Alex Jones situation.
All right. So before we move on from Lightning, because I'm always happy to talk about Lightning. Does anyone else have any Lightning thoughts? All right.
I've got one more thing to say. Just one thing. Like, obviously, I'm super excited about Lightning, but I think it is not the biggest driver. The biggest driver of Bitcoin adoption is holding, right? So I think the thing to consider here is just the point that money moves in stages, right? This is something I've seen Vijay Boyapati explain very well. And he's saying it moves from collectible to store of value to medium of exchange to unit of account. And I think ultimately, if we think back to Trace Mayer's 7 network effects of Bitcoin, I think the strongest of all of those is the hodler or the investor. So let's remember that in mind as well. So now, yes, Bitcoin has kind of like that digital gold meme, or that, you know, even better than digital gold. And it's also got this kind of unstoppable payments aspect, right? Like making payments to Alex Jones or WikiLeaks or whatever. But I think the more strong thing is actually the store of value component. So just keep that in mind as well with some of the Lightning. And obviously I'm super excited as well. But I think really the biggest driver is holding.
Oh yeah, I mean, but people can't. It seems too simple for people. They're like, "Oh, that's what my grandfather did. That's so old-fashioned." No, man, strong hand. That's what we preach here. So yeah, I've always loved that aspect. You don't need to give me any Lightning. I love Bitcoin because of the strong hand holding. But you know, in order to attract, you know, the mainstream media, to get the attention, to really bring a spark to the 80%ers out there, I think there's going to be something created on Litecoin that's going to really wake up the world more so than just simple holding could. I mean, holding's the best. Savings is the best. But in the world we live in, that doesn't...
I think you meant Lightning.
that doesn't bring the masses. It should, but that's just not the way it is. But no, I get your point totally. I totally get it, definitely. All right. Any other lightning before we move on to talk about another rocky topic you wanted to bring up here, the network hash rate? Rocky, you had something to say about that.
Yeah, let me find the screen here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So here is the website that shows you the hash rate from the very beginning, way back here in January of 2009 up through today. And we hear a lot of noise from a couple of miners, shall we say, Roger Jihan. And when people hear all this noise, they tend to think that all the miners feel this way, right? Well, that's not what the data shows. If we zoom in here on right when Bcash was started about 13 months ago, you could see that they started off with a hash rate of, it's showing it right up here, a hash rate of 4.85. What is that? Oh, okay, yeah, exahashes. Yeah. Okay, so today they actually have less than what they started off with. Today they have a 3.67 exahashes, where Bitcoin's hash rate has gone up over 8 times. So if you think that the miners don't support Bitcoin, you're wrong. The miners are putting the vast majority of their hash rate towards the chain they trust the most, and that's Bitcoin.
Excellent. Guys, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say that if you look at the initial downtrend when Bitcoin Cash first launched, it fell all the way to 50. At 50G, I think. And that's the exact amount that Bitmain said they would dedicate from their main pool as a sort of base layer. No matter what happened to Bitcoin Cash, they would put in at least that much. I remember watching that closely when it happened, and I saw the hash rate, I guess the other way, decline down to that level, and it stuck there for a long time before anyone started picking up. So it was clear that the entire mining community, the pools, the miners, they all made a choice between what was traditionally Bitcoin and the Bitcoin Cash option. They all voted with their mining power, and they went to one direction, except for the 50 that were dedicated to the project by the company we're talking about. So, I mean, the vote was clear. Election was done. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. There's no changing that. After that, Bitcoin Cash stood up on its own, and they played different games later. But if you look at the early history, there's nothing to debate there. That chart says everything.
And also, in the early days, the reason why it fluctuated so much was because of their EDA, their emergency difficulty adjustment. Yeah. And that's why you got these wild swings in the beginning. And it also created, inflation on their chain. Because they were, basically giving the coin away, extra coins per hour, so that the miners would come mine it, because they wouldn't mine it because it was a better chain, right? They mined it, they went to mine it because they made more money at it. And when you're a miner, it's all about the money, right? So that's why you got those fluctuations.
Absolutely right.
Stephan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's just part of that story of. It's all the metrics point towards Bitcoin, right? Has the most hash power, the most transactions, the most price, or the highest price, the most developer commits. It's just all of these metrics are pointing towards Bitcoin. So that's kind of really all I would say. Oh, one other point is just that really remember, it's not the labor theory of value, right? It's not that just because somebody does mining on a chain that the chain will be valuable. It's people value Bitcoin. Therefore, they're willing to pay, in a sense, by inflation or through fees for security on Bitcoin. And the miners are kind of like the people that the network hires to provide that security. That's all I would say.
I agree with that. but I'd argue that goes slightly against what you said previously. I agree with your general point previously that holders are the core of things, that holding is one of the most important long-term things. But what you just said is part of why I think that utilization, commerce with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is critical, because it creates the liquidity in transactions. The commerce and seeing a store that's selling coffee for Lightning Network, that's what creates awareness. You know, even though more people than ever know that Bitcoin exists, extremely few of them have any understanding of it and any willingness to invest. They just see that it pops up and it falls down. But when they see it being used, when they see storefronts saying, use it here, that's when you see that growth in the transactions on the blockchain. That's when you see merchants transacting in it over and over, who start saying, well, wait a second, my expense ratio is this, but I see this currency I keep using going up. I'm going to start keeping part of it. I'm going to become a holder. I'll sell what I need to buy new stock to continue work and skim off the edge as my savings. They become holders. You turn in new people into holders by getting them to use it. And I think that's the most important thing, driving the growth in Bitcoin, Bitcoin Gold, other cryptos, and driving new holders being created, which are what drive the whole thing long term.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to articulate it. I think maybe it's just the way I was articulating it is not perfect, right? But I agree that money needs to be the most liquid, saleable good, and we need to be able to transact in it, right? Whether that's on-chain or using layers above Bitcoin, such as Lightning Network, or maybe some other kind of retail banking solution that kind of operates on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. So I agree with you on pretty much most of what you're saying. I think it's the point I was just trying to make is that there are multiple networks of effects in play. They are all valuable, right? The merchant accepting Bitcoin factor is valuable, obviously, but I think the holder part is the most valuable. That's all I was just trying to say with that. One other thing, though, it's interesting, and this is an interesting point. Does Bitcoin need a marketing department? I would argue it actually doesn't. What will happen over time is, if it's the hardest money, it will just win anyway, right? It doesn't need us to. However, I think, part of it is, I try to help communicate the value of Bitcoin anyway, because I think we can help speed that adoption process. But I think theoretically, if we just, hands off, stopped it and just let people figure out which one was the hardest money, the market would eventually kind of coalesce onto the best, hardest money. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But yeah, no, I agree with your thoughts about there's still a need for merchant adoption.
I agree with what you said as far as what's most important. I'm just thinking that it's the adoption that builds new holders to enable us to have more of what you say is most important. So, we really agree. But on the marketing side, I just wanted to mention, I think that the best marketing is seeing people use it. And that's what we're seeing more of, especially with Lightning Network. So, yeah. I mean, there's a counter argument on the marketing side. I don't want to talk down to the public, but how people make lots of foolish mistakes. People believe lots of foolish stuff. A lot of people believed marketing that was done by Bitcoin Cash saying it was Bitcoin. I was shocked at how many people would walk up to me saying that that's the case, and I'd end up correcting them. So marketing has a lot of power. Look at what happened to the price of Ripple, of XRP in the past 2 days. Now, you can say what you want about Ripple. You could love it or hate it, disagree or whatever. But there's absolutely no reason for that thing to spike up the way it did, unless there's a huge marketing effect, that there's a public that can easily believe something and all pile into it. I knew the market was overheated last December when a dentist was asking me how he can get his money into Ripple. Dentists shouldn't be saying to someone, sitting in a chair, so how do I get my money into Ripple? Let's talk after this. Marketing does matter. We have to pay attention to that. But most of the marketing, I think, is going to be done naturally by people developing applications that use these cryptos. The people making Lightning Network, the people making those coffee machines, putting it in the storefront, they are advertising their services, but their services use Bitcoin. They are the marketing for Bitcoin. I think it's just going to keep growing that way.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to add with the marketing. yeah, Bitcoin doesn't need marketing, and Bitcoin does not have it. All the other coins in their centralized ways, they can create marketing teams, so they can have that marketing advantage. But in the long run, Bitcoin does not need marketing, and I think it will prove itself as the most sound money, as Stephan was saying. And the marketing will form naturally. We don't need to assign a team because there's no one to assign a team in Bitcoin. But yeah, if there was a marketing team, I don't think it would hurt Bitcoin. I don't think it would hurt. But yeah, in the crypto space, there's a lot of there's a lot of shady marketing out there. But again, this is where the big boys play. It's personal responsibility. It's no one's fault but your own if you end up buying Ripple. It really is. I mean, you heard something good about Ripple. I mean, you should have looked into it a little bit deeper. I mean, you should have known what a Bitcoin halving was before you bought Ripple. And I seriously doubt most of the people buying Ripple know what the Bitcoin halving is, or know that a Bitcoin can even be split into smaller than one Bitcoin piece there.
Speaking of the halving. Yes,
sir.
And this kind of relates to the hash rate and the EDA that we were talking about. That emergency difficulty adjustment was actually allowing them on that chain to just make a whole bunch of blocks in a very short period of time. So what that did was got that chain ahead, far ahead. Right now it's like over 6,000 blocks ahead of the Bitcoin chain. So as we all know here, a halving is not every 4 years, right? It's every 210,000 blocks, which takes about 4 years. But they're going to, because they're so much further ahead, they're going to hit their halving about 2 months before Bitcoin does.
Yeah.
And so now what is that EDA going to have to do, right? It's going to have to double its efforts and have even twice as much inflation just to keep up with Bitcoin, which is going to put them back, 4 or 5 months. And then the same thing's going to build on itself, at the next halving. It could be up to a year, and then, 2 years. And then next thing you know, they're going to have a halving every month.
Yeah, they actually got rid of their EDA. They replaced their difficulty adjustment algorithm with a different one. But what you said is still absolutely true.
I thought they just made an adjustment to it so it's not so severe. They don't have those severe swings.
No, I think they have they used to have the 2 weeks with the EDA, approximately 2 weeks. They replaced that with a per block adjustment algorithm, unless I'm misremembering. So they completely got rid of the EDA. I've been comparing block times on Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin Gold. So I saw them smooth out a lot. They stopped getting these huge swings, but they still get a lot of swings because now they're on a per block difficulty adjustment. And they still have that same vulnerability. When they go through their halvening first, it's going to completely change the economics, and they're going to have to deal with some frustrations there. And also, since they're the smaller coin and there's a lot of very liquid hash power, whenever their difficulty dips and miners see a momentary ability to profit, the hash power can rush in and their adjustment algorithm can't adjust fast enough. They burn a whole bunch of extra coin during that period. Well, I used the wrong term. They create a bunch of extra coin, which is probably why they were doing some burning of coin to try to level things out to make the inflation rate look the same as Bitcoin.
And this is all assuming they could last another 2 years, right?
Assuming they're still here 2 years from now. Yeah.
It's hard to kill these things. They're all going to be around in some form or fashion.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, none have disappeared yet. But I mean, again, who knows what the 20-year future is going to bring for some of these crazy altcoins that are out there. I wanted to quickly give a big shout out. I lost my Rafterman R. He says, keep up these awesome shows, Adam. He sent $2 in this super chat. Now, and thank you. I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, storage. Yes, boring storage. Ledger, Rocky, you had some thoughts about Ledger versus Trezor.
Yeah, well, as you know, I've been helping people with their wallet issues for about 2 years now. And I've helped, I myself own a Nano and a Trezor, and I've helped a lot of people with both. And there are a lot more issues with the Ledger products over the Trezor. And I highly recommend the Trezor these days. A couple of years ago, I would have said that Ledger was a close second to Trezor, but now it's a very, very far second. Please save yourself some major headaches and get yourself a Trezor if you're flip-flopping between the two. Now, of course, there's the new cold card that just came out, I think last week or the week before. I haven't had much experience with that yet. That's looking like it has a lot of promise, but that's kind of a little bit more for the advanced user. If you're just a regular, more common Bitcoin user, get yourself a Trezor. And starting today, they just went on sale if you get the Trezor 1.
Yes, they sent that email out. Stephan, I don't know if I've ever heard you say what's your preference, or if you have a preference
I'm like you guys. I like the Trezor myself, but yeah, I don't for safety reasons. I don't discuss my own personal security and storage. But I think the general advice I would say to people is and this is basically the common advice everyone gives, is the amount of Bitcoin, that's the level of security and effort you should put in, right? So if you've just got a small amount, fine, keep it on a mobile wallet, no one cares, right? If it's like $10, whatever. But as you start to move up, that's when you need to start getting more serious and start looking into, okay, hardware wallet, then, multi-signature and, things about, start thinking about things like vaults, backups, security. You need to think about those things as well. But these will come naturally as you as a listener, you become more serious about it, or as your investment increases.
Ed, your thoughts on storage, Trezor versus Ledger, anything with that?
I have to be very careful expressing preferences because we're trying to be a neutral third party. So
you use them. You've mentioned what's its face too. What's it? Not Digital Bitbox. The other one that. What's it? I forgot its name. It's the same. Eric Voorhees owns it. What's the other one called? I'm forgetting its name. Anyway, I saw you tweet the other one out once. Let's let one subject I wanted to bring up that's been brought up. Bitfury has a new chip. I say great. Competition is good. I brought this up on yesterday's show, but I wanted to bring it up with you guys. You guys have any thoughts on chip competition or on Bitfury in particular, this developing situation?
Yeah, so my understanding, I had a quick look into it. This Bitfury Clark product, my understanding is it's not the lowest nanometer, but the idea is that it allows people to get the better bang for buck, basically, rather than trying to compete based on nanometer, which has become like smartphone megapixel or camera megapixels kind of thing. But I think just generally, I think it is good to see we're seeing more decentralization of mining. This is a topic I discussed with Samson as well. If any of the listeners want, you can check out episode 20. But yeah, basically in that episode, he was basically talking about how the mining market is really starting to decentralize a little bit in terms of the production. So some of the talent from Bitmain has left to go to this other company, Bitfury. So that's a few comments there.
All right. Again, decentralization of mining is great. More and more players into this thing it's great. So because people, I don't care about the FUDsters. FUDsters are always going to say monopoly out there. All right, okay. So another topic that I know, Rocky, you had, and we haven't talked about this for a while. People still need to switch to wallets that support SegWit. They still haven't done that. Rocky, what's up with that?
Yes, it's very important to switch to SegWit. SegWit will make your transactions cheaper, and it allows they're smaller transactions so that you can fit more transactions in a block. And probably sometime next year, I keep changing my release date on this. It's really hard to guesstimate these things. Sometimes next year we're going to get SegWit 2.0, which will have Schnorr signatures, and that's going to massively increase the storage of a block, up to 4 megs. And it's going to really make your transactions so much smaller when you have multiple inputs, because it's going to be able to take all the signatures for each input and condense it into one. So you really got to switch to a SegWit wallet. If you are making more than one transaction per month, you should be using SegWit. Here's a chart right here showing the amount of transactions now being used in Bitcoin, what the percentage that are SegWit. We just hit our high a short while ago at like 44.3%, and now we're almost there. We're almost that high again. But you got to dump these wallets. It's been over a year. If they haven't updated now, they kind of lost their chance. Switch wallets to a wallet that supports SegWit.
Yeah, I haven't heard that reminder in a long time, but it's good. It's good that the adoption rate is that high.
I'd say one other thing. A lot of people are very resistant to change. Once they learn to use a wallet, they really don't want to change. I've gone through a lot of them, but you know, I'm a tech guy. People send me samples and stuff. The thing I'd say is, if you have a favorite wallet and you don't want to move, complain. Tell them that they need to get SegWit on board, because any decent wallet that's well supported wants to do this. Any decent wallet will respond to its users. So if you don't want to change your wallet, I get it. Tell your wallet provider, tell your wallet developer that you want SegWit. They do respond to their own users.
I've been beating that drum, Ed. I've been beating that drum for 6 to 9 months, telling people to contact their wallet provider if they haven't switched yet. Because, you know, SegWit has really been out for 2 years, right? It's just been active for a little over one. So they've had plenty of time. In fact, blockchain.info, which is now blockchain.com, I believe, you know, they said they were ready to switch in January of 2017, and they haven't switched yet. Of course,
this is a great reminder to me. I have to start prodding our community to start speaking up to the wallet providers too, because you know, we're on BitGo, we're on Trezor, we're on KeepKey, we're on Ledger. We're on all of these, and it matters to us too. But we're on a dozen small ones as well. You know, we need our people to be complaining about that too. Yeah, we've had SegWit active since our first day, because we forked after it became active in Bitcoin. But still, we've got a lot of wallets that don't support SegWit that our people are dealing with. And one of the craziest things is, every now and then there's an exchange that does SegWit and an exchange that doesn't do SegWit, and you can't send stuff in between. I've had to send stuff to my personal wallet so I can send it to another exchange, because one supports SegWit and one doesn't. Is that crazy or what?
It's early days. It's what it's telling me. By the way, KeepKey was the storage device I couldn't think of beforehand, but I
was trying to slip that in without pointing it out.
Very good. All right, Stephan, do you have any SegWit thoughts or anything like that? I know it's old school, but we need to remind everybody, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, not a huge amount to add. I would say we've done reasonably well to at least get the number of SegWit spends to 40%. There's no forcing of people to use SegWit. Obviously, I recommend, it's a good thing to switch to a SegWit supported wallet. There are many that do support it, such as Samurai Wallet, and a few others. I think Green Address, a lot of the big wallets do support it. So, I think listeners should try to, either switch to a wallet that does support it, or complain to your developers.
Yeah. Well, here we are. We're getting close to the end here. Stephan, since I got you here, right, you were just speaking. Tell us what's going on in Australia. Tell us some Australian Bitcoin news, because we got a guy all the way in Australia. There's got to be some insight you got into the community over there.
Not a great amount at this point. Like, I mean, some of the meetups, the number of people at the meetups is not that high. And I think that's just a function of being in a bit of a bear market cycle. It's, I really think of myself, I think of Bitcoin more as a global thing. So I am actually more tapped in on Twitter than I am with like local Australian Bitcoin meetups. Sometimes I get a bit disappointed, because some of the Australian meetups, there's too much focus on like, ICOs and some of that, and I'm not into that. So for me, and even at the Bitcoin meetup, they'll be talking about like random other things, like EOS or whatever, and I'm not really that into that. I'm into Bitcoin. So sorry, unfortunately, there's not a great deal that I can add in terms of Australian Bitcoin.
That is insight into the communities. Because again, I still, I travel around the world myself, and I still think the United States definitely has the most, I think, the largest crypto community, the largest Bitcoin community. You say you're more tapped into the Twitter world than your near surroundings, and the Twitter world is dominated by people from North America. Tweeting out, getting into battles about Bitcoin and crypto and all of that. And well, at least you got English is the language of Bitcoin also, and that's benefits Australia, I'm sure. But that we're talking about real life meetups. We got Rocky. How's your meetup in California lately?
Oh, I kind of postponed those for a while. I don't know if I'm going to start those up anytime soon. I do want to do them again, but I had to take a little break just because of personal reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but
I did do 19 meetups, monthly meetups in a row.
Well, I mean, again, and there's the demand. The people don't seem to want to get together as much as they did during the height of December, to say the least. Again, and then I mean, it's when it's super trendy, and when the 80%ers, when the people are all talking EOS, that's when all sorts of gatherings are the most popular. It's times like this when the true strong hands are the only ones who show, or the only people who are even talking about it anymore. So, yeah, I bet things pick up everywhere in terms of real life meetings. I do encourage people, wherever you are, try to find a meetup, because if you do go to one, it'll definitely be some hardcore people there. I can say that. All right, Ed, give us some Bgold information. Bgold update.
Well, one of the big things that our devs are working on is our Lightning Network, which is now in beta. But one interesting thing is that this past weekend, our lead developer, H4X, who has been anonymous and technically still is, did his first public appearance at a development conference in Korea. So in South Korea, he did his first public appearance, and he was well received. He talked about some of the things we've been talking about here: scalability, how we're working on Lightning Network, and possibilities for side chains with smart contracts. These are things we have on our roadmap that we'll be working on in the near term that are really exciting for us. But I think the South Koreans were mostly excited by the fact that they were the first people to get to see H4X's face. So he's Chinese. He spoke in English, and it was translated to Korean for that audience. So, when you say English is the language of Bitcoin, globally, every language is Bitcoin. The code is universal. So,
yes, yeah, indeed. But again, people do. It's a lot of English speakers speaking it.
Absolutely. It's the broadest, most commonly spoken language. There's no denying that. I'm trying to figure out what I should learn as my third language. I'm debating. I'm actually thinking about trying to learn either Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, and I can't decide which.
Yeah, everyone says Mandarin. It's because there's so many people who speak it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's a bet. Korean and Japanese might be more practical. I see the battle in your head going on.
All of them will be very hard and very difficult for me, because I speak Polish and English and a little smattering of French. So everything is Western. So I want to do something that's really going to stretch my brain.
Well, I'll say this. I love visiting South Korea during the Bitcoin boom. That was quite amazing. Having people ask me about all sorts of altcoins and whatnot. They'll go crazy. It's all cyclical. Everyone's who knows what country will be the next South Korea? Maybe it'll be India. Hopefully it'll be India, because that's got a tremendous population. Wow. But we'll talk about that at another time. All right. So now everybody's conclusionary remarks. We're going to go Rocky, then Ed, and Stephan will be last because he's the furthest. He's in the remote Australian Sydney. Okay. So Rocky, anything we left out? Anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to show the embroidered patches that I bought with Lightning. Right, just to show it does work, real world use case here. I bought these from a company in England. The transaction went through instantly, and because I used Lightning, they doubled my order. I got all of these patches here. It's called patcheon.com is the name of the website I got them from. I just wanted to show those off. And I just wanted to, again, point out that everyone should follow the 4 Satoshis. And also, Dan from the 21 Million Club, he has switched over to this website, the justlearnbitcoin.com. And so anybody who's got any question or wants to learn more about Bitcoin should come here and go to the consulting services and send an email to ask about scheduling a consultation if they're interested.
Yeah, Daniel of Just Learn Bitcoin, he is freaking awesome. I don't know if he's in the chat right now. If he is, what's up, dude? Pound that freaking like button. But yeah, I'll link to him, and I'll link to the 4 Satoshis too after the show. Ed, conclusionary stuff. Anything we left out?
So it's been a huge week for us because of the Bitcoin vulnerability that affected us. And I just wanted to point out that this is, to me, one of the signs that the markets have bottomed out and that we're now going to recover. It gives me confidence because when the prices are really vulnerable, news of something like a vulnerability in Bitcoin that's been around all this time, potentially exploit, this would cause prices to tumble sharply if we were overinflated and we were still in this churn market, but it didn't. You know, Bitcoin prices were rock solid. Bitcoin gold prices were rock solid. We've gotten through this storm and things are actually looking up today for a variety of coins. You know, I don't agree with the bump in Ripple, but it shows you that there's interest and excitement in investing. I think we've passed the worst, and it's time for people to start getting to meetups to learn the truth about all these different projects so they can understand what's going on, so they could come out whole during the next run up before we have another bust cycle.
I want to give everybody a little sneak preview. I'm going to talk about the Ripple thing on my Sunday show. Ben Lawsky of the New York fame, he retweeted something by Ripple, a very bullish statement by Ripple, and some people think that added to this. It just shows how centralized it is. That, you know, one guru tweets something out. What a guru he is! Oh God. Anyway, all right. So Stephan, stuff we left out, man. This is the last day of winter, right, here in the Southern Hemisphere. So everything's looking up.
Yeah, look, I think not anything of massive insight to add, but I think it's time, right? It's just over time, people will become more comfortable with Bitcoin. They will, you know, more every day, more people are being born, and they've never known a world without Bitcoin. And it just becomes part of the furniture. It becomes part of the way people do things like store their value or send it in an unstoppable way. So over time, we'll just see that develop.
Awesome. That is a good way of summing it up. I always like to end on a positive like that. Okay, dudes. Well, you can check out everything we talk about in the show is linked to below. All these guys are linked to below. I'll add anything they want me to add. They'll tell me what to add. So if you're not watching this live, you'll see everything. But again, we do this show every Friday. Who knows what time it will be on next Friday, but I'm proud to have the best freaking guest in the space on the show. This was an excellent show. Thank you very much, guys, for taking the time to be here today, and everyone who watched it today. And of course, I do a new show every single day. And Saturday's show is the Beyond Bitcoin show. And hey, tune in, check out the archives, disruptmeister.com. Twitter, I am TechBalt, TechBalt. I'm Adam Meister, Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video, check out the links below. Have a great weekend, everyone. See ya. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Pound that like button.
Pound that like button.
See you guys.